Hi, I'm Paul Kinlan, developer advocate at Google, and today we're going to look at the Sketchbot experiment in the Web Lab project. I'm with Roger and Matthias from BeReal. Do you guys want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, I'm Roger. I'm a creative technologist at BeReal, and I've been the technical lead of the project.
And I'm Matthias, also a creative technologist at BeReal, and been working with several of the projects.
Cool. So, well, anyway, welcome to our little studio in Humble campus, or Google campus in London. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Web Lab project and just the Sketchbot experiment today. For those who haven't seen Web Lab, chromeweblab.com, I believe, is the correct URL. Yeah,
that's
right.
Yeah.
Woo! It's a series of 5 real-world Chrome experiments that also have a kind of a browser-based interface as well. And the really cool thing about Chrome Web Lab is that the way that you experience the experiment inside the museum is the exact same way that you would experience it inside the browser anywhere in the world. I'm really proud of it. I think it's awesome. I think it's a really nice thing inside the museum. Check out our previous Hangout where we actually went into a little bit more depth about, Chrome Web Lab. It's cool. Check it out. But today we're going to talk about Sketchbots, which is one of the 5 experiments. Do you want to give a brief introduction?
Yeah, it's basically 8 robots in the museum drawing your face in sand to represent how the computers are seeing you.
Right.
So
cool. So it basically takes your photo inside the museum or online and then draws it in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds a bit weird. It's like, so we can draw our photo from here in the sand and then kind of see what it looks like later on.
yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. I sound like a real bad shill. I know exactly what I know what it's like. It is pretty cool, this one. So, as we can see on the screen, this is like the main menu interface at the moment with the Sketchbots, and we can see a couple of the actual machines inside the museum. Let's launch the experiment. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna say this every single time we do a Hangout. I love the loading screens. They're very nice. So who did the loading screens? Was it any of you or?
Yeah, it was us and also our art director who did the small animations in Flash and exported them with Svg.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sweet.
it's Svg animations in the start and
nice.
in the logo in the corner as well.
So how come you use this is I didn't know this. So how come you used kind of Flash to start off with? Is it to the timeline, the way that you can do timelines and everything? It just makes it easier.
Yeah, we couldn't find any HTML5 tool that was right for creating these animations.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of gradients and kind of when 2 shapes cross each other, they should have a separate color in just that area.
Right.
So it made it much simpler to work with animations in Flash.
Oh wow, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's have a look at this now. So this is the Sketchbot experiments. I do spoonerisms quite a lot. I end up saying the wrong words completely. But this is a live stream on the right hand side from the actual museum
from the museum. Yeah, so it's what's happening at the moment in the museum.
Cool. So I think obviously the museum's probably closed right now. It's probably about 7ish, something like that, I think.
But the robots are still.
But the robots work. So you said there was 4. So is it split? It's split for 4 people at the museum and 4 people online. When the museum's closed, does it go to kind of all 8?
Yeah,
exactly.
all 8 for online users.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's have a quick jump in because I want to ask you some stuff about queuing and all that type of stuff as well. I'm going to take my photo. And let's just briefly talk about this page, right? It doesn't look like there's lots going on, but I want to talk about one little bit here. So at the top of the screen, at the top of the screen here, we've got chromeweblab.com wants to use your camera. Now, what API is this that's kind of producing this alert?
This is Get User Media, that allows you to get the camera straight in the browser instead of going through a plugin. Yeah,
and this was only a relatively recent addition for your experiment, wasn't it?
When we started the project, this wasn't existent yet. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember and did I say this in this one or the one prior to this? Oh, I can't actually remember whether when we launched this, when we started this, we kept saying that Get User Media was like 2 or 3 months off, and it kept coming kind of like 2 and 3 months off, and then I think it was like the week of you launched, or opened in the museum, it finally landed in kind of like stable Chrome, and you guys flicked it across. Yeah. So what were you using prior to this to actually get the webcam data?
Flash.
Flash,
Yeah.
just a simple Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you this? Because I'm always interested about this because I never got onto the Flash bandwagon when I was developing. It was well actually my prior life was ASP.NET. But that's kind of interesting, right? So you would take something from the Flash object. How would you get it into the page? Would you?
So it's a bridge between Flash and JavaScript.
Yeah.
So we just send the raw data of the image and draw it with data URL.
Oh wow. Okay. So use a data URL and
Yeah.
cool. So that makes there's quite a lot of overhead generally. So you couldn't do you wouldn't need to do animations for this, but kind of send in.
We started off trying to do that and
Really?
got quite good results in just sending the data through. But we decided to just use one image to
Right.
in the end.
No, it's pretty cool. So let's you talk about an image. Let's
Yeah.
allow the camera. Hey, right. I'm not sure how well this is going to work with the lights and everything, but oh, there we are.
So this is quite interesting because we wanted not to have this kind of position yourself in the frame.
Yep.
We wanted to have something more seamless.
Yep.
So this is using face detection to detect your
Well,
face.
How do you do the face detection? Is that
So it's a program called Pittsburgh Pattern Recognition running on the server. So we send off your image for analyze, and it gets back where your eyes and mouth and nose
so all
are.
that analysis is done on the server.
Yeah.
You send it to the server and then bring it back in. Cool. Is that because there was no kind of JavaScript library that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Cool. So let's submit this photo. I'm really happy with the photo, although there's someone kind of photo bombing at the side. This is funny. I was in Liverpool the other week, and I was walking through with my son, and there was like a photo model shoot going on, and my son was just standing there, like he's only 7, like photo bombing everything, and the photographers are getting really annoyed. So, oh, sorry. Anyway, what happened there? Was
So
that?
here we detect the face first, then we align it. We desaturate the image, and here we transform it into a binary image, just black and white, which is quite interesting because we're using adaptive threshold.
Yeah.
After that, we do the edge detection, and finally we draw the vector lines with Bezier curves.
Cool. And so we need to do these lines because they are what's translated to the robots, kind of the instructions to draw the commands.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you mentioned before though that you basically sent the stuff to the server, like the image to the server, and did the processing. But in the user interface, we saw quite a lot of, say, user interactivity in the sense of it showed you a line in the image to verticalize it.
Yeah.
I mean, each of those steps, was that done by the server itself, and then you just kind of?
No,
No.
those are done in with web workers. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
workers in the background processing all your data and to make it a smooth animation.
So like, is the first step to basically detect where the face is?
Yeah.
And then all the rest of it, is that done inside the browser?
Yeah.
Or okay,
Yeah, it's
wow,
Client
Yeah.
side, and
That's
it's
pretty
the
cool.
canvas animation.
that's pretty cool.
And we do it on the server side as well when you submit your photos to the robots to make sure that no one injects dirty
Yeah,
vectors.
yeah, I can imagine. So okay, that's pretty cool. So I mean, the point of kind of how to say this right. So you went through a couple of steps where you desaturated it and then you turned it into
A
binary image, and then you did the outline with the Bezier curves. I mean, is that a standard process? I mean, I'm kind of interested in this from kind of how you actually worked out the steps that you should take to make the commands.
It is quite standard. I mean, what you want at the end of the day is to get from your normal picture to get like a binary image where you can do edge detection and then create the vector lines. What we found out is that this process from creating, when you have a desaturated image, like a black and white image, and you want to create a binary image that is just black and white pixels, if we were using a normal threshold to do that, if the user had some kind of shadow in the face, for example, this was spoiling everything because it got all the vector line would do something like this, so it would be only half of the face. So what we ended up using was one thing called adaptive threshold. That what it does, instead of just having one threshold, and if the pixels are darker than this, they are black, and if they are lighter, they are white. What we do is each of the specific pixels has its own threshold that depends on the neighbors.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
then, even
Okay.
though you have like a very dark area, you still can differentiate the outlines of the mouth and the eyes and the ears.
That's nice. Yeah. So you're using like the average of all like, the 9 pixels around it essentially.
Yeah, for example. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I kind of see that in Photoshop. It's like
Yeah.
people can write their own. I'm rubbish at those type of things. I'm absolutely terrible at that. But you know, it's pretty cool. Well, that's actually pretty interesting. So at this point, we've made the series of like Bezier curves and everything. Now, I actually want to ask this as a general question because the reason why I want to ask this question is because I have a presentation to do, and I want to take a picture of me, but I want to do it like a rough outline of me as basically as a Bezier curve because WebKit mask and WebKit clip regions and everything take basically what is known as an SVG path essentially. Is that something you did here? I mean, how did you work out the best Bezier curve to go? I mean, how did you work out this one? Really interesting. Like, you got my two eyes there, and you know they're completely enclosed paths. I mean, how'd you do that?
Yeah, it's just following kind of the edge and trying to connect them.
Oh.
So you're following the edge of between the black and the white,
Right.
And if they aren't connected, then we close the path when it gets all the way around.
Oh, okay, and it's kind of that simple.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I was hoping that question to go on a lot longer. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, do you know much about the process between then kind of sending this to the actual bots themselves? I mean, because they're two normally quite physically disconnected machines. It's not as if the web server runs on these bots, right? So we'll send this to App Engine, I presume, something similar to that. And then how does that data then get to the bot itself?
So this is done by our partner Telart, who built all the robots, and basically we submit it to kind of a big queue,
right?
And then the bots itself, I think they actually have a small computer running, or it could be a virtual instance of it. But they say, I'm ready to do something new, and they get the next one in the queue and kind of a central distribution of them.
That's pretty cool. I heard some rumors, I don't know whether they're true, that there was like, so there's the Sketchbots themselves, which I hope to show the video of my face at least getting drawn. Oh, I didn't save it. Oh, no. Okay, yes, you can have contact. That's my email address for everyone. It's fine. I'm public anyway. Okay, cool. So this is where we know that they're kind of busy, right? But what we can do at least anyways, we can kind of show what the actual sketch looks like as well. And that's because we record the actual arm and everything moving, don't we? Kind of.
So now you have your saved and the curves.
Oh,
the
wow.
Bezier curves.
Yes. Let me +1 that. I'll tweet it later. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, so what happens here now is that it'll go off. It's still in the queue. It hasn't been processed yet, but this is like kind of my client-side representation of what's just been drawn. And at some point in the future, it will, well, I don't know how long it'll take, but it'll then go off and draw it on the machine. I was going to say before, I heard a rumor that there was like, do you know about this rumor where they tried like 57 different types of sand or something?
Haven't heard that.
Oh, well, I heard this rumor that basically what happened in the project was that they needed to kind of, to make sure that the consistency, basically what is drawn out from the commands. And if we look on the right-hand side, you can see it working here now with the arm moving, kind of drawing someone's face.
Your face.
I hope it is my face. It's a rather beautiful face, isn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't say yes. You're supposed to say yes. But basically, yeah, so it's going to draw. It draws, I think, 3 or 4 faces at a time. It looks really cool with the shadow casting across. But then the face comes round, you know, not the face, but the sand pit kind of moves round, wipes out one of the faces, and then draws the next one. And the rumor that I heard was, to get the consistency so that the face was already kind of always wiped out from the kind of the arm that kind of flattens everything. But then the arm that actually does the drawing itself, if it was too thick, it didn't draw right or something, and if it was too thin, it didn't draw right as well, and I had to kind of just find the right sand. I don't know if that's an urban legend, but yeah, you heard it first here. It's either true or it's completely false. That's pretty cool. I mean, the one thing I'd like to talk about as well is that we do have like a little how it works button. So if you kind of, you kind of like this and you want to learn a little bit more about the browser technology behind it, we do have some more information about the web workers, and I don't know that many people who use web workers, so you guys using it is pretty cool. I mean, so actually just to jump on the kind of the point of the web workers, and I know I'm kind of going all over the place now, and this is what proper planning is meant for. So your use of the web workers, was that for everything to do with the image?
Yeah, so
processing?
all the image processing
Cool.
is done in.
So how did it work, right? Because there was like multiple steps. You know, you desaturated, grayscaled, no, desaturated, then black and white, thinged, and then you went around with the Bezier curve. Did you orchestrate? Was that one big process in a web worker?
No, it was kind of calling different and kind of, especially when it comes to the desaturation and adaptive threshold, it's a lot of the same, just with different values to get it into the animation to.
Okay, so you basically kind of get the web worker to do a small piece of work, then it'll deliver the result, and then you'll kind of orchestrate that with the animation, and then.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So the actual web worker itself, I mean, how did you get the data in and out? Because post message is, normally takes strings in a lot of cases. Then you can do JavaScript objects and transferables as well to try and deliver the data kind of efficiently. How did you get the data between? Was it just one base 64 kind of decoded image, or?
Yeah, I believe it was sending in an image and sending it back.
I think so. Yeah, I can remember now, but yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of interesting because I know a lot of people who have started to try to do stuff with web workers, but kind of sending that much data is like they don't know whether it's worth the benefit of actually using the web worker instead of just processing it in. I'm presuming it was like very worth it in this project, because actually desaturating an image over multiple steps and animating it at the time is pretty like processor intensive, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, everything freezed and you couldn't see any of the animation. So
yeah, you don't want to lock the user interface while doing some image processing.
Yeah, I think that's been key with a lot of this project, right? Is that we've tried to have this seamless kind of like user experience flow throughout the whole thing, right? There should be no jank, yank or jank. I never know which way they say it in America, but I think it's jank. And it's like the stuttering between kind of animations, and even like a 20 millisecond delay, right? You can notice that when scrolling and all that type of stuff. So it's kind of I think it's pretty interesting how you use web workers in this project.
And I think it changed also during the process of this project, where it was kind of copying all the data in the beginning, and now it transfers the data, so it gets unusable.
Oh, so this uses the transferable objects?
Yeah, we had that switch and got some while we were working. Couldn't understand why we couldn't use the data anymore.
That's pretty interesting, because just as a bit of background for this, so web workers, you can deliver data in two ways. You can post, it's one way, post message. That means you have to send message from kind of one kind of process into another process. And it's actually relatively heavyweight to be able to do that, because you have to serialize, say it was a 2 megabyte string, like a base 64 encoded string or something. You have to take that string, serialize it, pass it across the kind of the IPC like jump essentially, deserialize it, do the work on it, and then send it back doing the same thing as well. So you end up with like 4 or 5 copies of the same piece of data, or manipulated data at least. And to some extent, so what happened probably about 8 months ago, I think it was, WebKit introduced post message with transferables, and the idea behind transferables is it's like a zero memory copy. So the idea, and I keep saying the idea is, the theory this time, the reason why we want to do this is we want to make sure that you have data in one application, you deliver it to another application, another web page, nearly instantly by just saying we're going to copy the memory across. You don't do a copy of the memory, you just pass it from one application to another. It's pretty quick. We've got some stats on HTML5rocks.com which actually tell you, some of the benefits of using it. The problem is it introduces a bit of a different programming model, where if you have some data, an array, for instance, on the client, you lose control of it when you send it to a remote application. But it's a lot faster. So check it out. I think that's it for this experiment. Yeah, so join us next time for our next hangout, where we're going to talk about one of our other most awesome experiments.